Kill la Kill is a lot of things. A story about revenge, found family, Matt Mercer screaming.
Nudist.
Oh, forget it.
Coming of age, and in the same vein as that, puberty and self-confidence. And despite the almost MS Paint quality of animation sometimes, it does this in some very visually stunning, if not fan servicey or bloody ways. I apologize in advance, Goblin, you might have to do a lot of censoring for a bunch of strangely angled shots. Now the way the story is laid out did give me a little trouble at first when it came to who I was going to make here, since the first half of the show is almost formatted like a Monster of the Week show before suddenly shifting around the midpoint, but I knew I wanted to make the main character Ryuko, and spoiler warning for a 10-year-old anime, her sister Satsuki. And for a third character, who else could I really make other than Mako? Ryuko's best friend and one of my favorite supporting characters ever. Whenever Mako's on screen, you can only be sure of two things: pure chaos and her calling an impromptu timeout to give Ryuko a pep talk. So let's get started. Honnouji Academy is probably the furthest thing from a normal school as possible. Even if you just try to keep your head down and don't get involved with anything, you could still be subjected to experimentation or beatings by your clubmates, this guy busting into your class mid-lecture only to jump out a window, or deal with the dreaded no tardy day, where you have to go through an obstacle course and if you don't get to class on time, you get expelled. Not to mention the student council president calling everyone pigs in human clothing and hanging people who break the rules outside the school like they used to with pirates. Is that kid alive? So with all that in mind, I can't see any reason why anyone would ever want to go to this school. Unless you are Ryuko Matoi. Ryuko is a textbook delinquent, skipping classes, getting in fights, and so on. But in one of my favorite tropes in anime, Ryuko's not a bad person. Sure, she'll throw hands if she needs to, but she's just gonna mind her own business unless something bothers her. And she's here at Honnouji Academy for exactly that reason. Because somewhere in this school, she is going to find a lead to her father's killer. You see, Ryuko's weapon of choice is this huge scissor blade, but only half of a pair. And Ryuko knows that whoever has the second half of the scissor blade either is the person who killed her father, or at least knows them. And from the moment Ryuko steps onto the school grounds, her only goal is to track down the other half. This, doesn't go super well for her. She picks a fight with someone way stronger than her and ends up getting beaten down by one of their lackeys. But that's just round one. After retreating and falling into the hidden basement/garbage pile of her burned down house, thanks to Matt here, she meets the hungriest sentient sailor uniform on the planet. Yeah, those are certainly words. This is Senketsu, or just Senketsu, a powerful living uniform made entirely out of life fibers, which have their own tangled knot of lore and are technically aliens, but what's important here is that wearing him, and letting him drink Ryuko's blood for a bit, not only transforms him, but also the wearer into a not quite magical girl form, increasing Ryuko's strength, durability, and really everything else. There's just one issue. In his transformed form, Senketsu is a little revealing, which is apparently by design, as the less shame you have, the easier it is to sync with him and get even stronger. But after overcoming both her embarrassment at wearing Senketsu, and being given a way to control the amount of blood she feeds him, Ryuko is ready to take on the school and eventually challenge the student council president. But there's just one more thing I want to cover before we bring up the character sheet here. And that is what Ryuko is, because despite obviously looking human, she's not. Much like her carrying only half of a scissor blade, she is only half human. Well, technically she is a hybrid between humans and life fibers. How that worked out, I'm not 100% sure, because apparently it didn't work out all that well, because her mother, also a hybrid, tossed her out as a failed experiment. Thankfully though, Ryuko did live, and this life fiber infusion gave her some really important abilities. Like I said with Senketsu, and this also applies to all other Goku uniforms, life fibers are incredibly strong, enhancing everything about whoever wears them. And some can heal so fast that by the time a blade passes through them, they've already healed and reconnected the cut strands, so no single bladed weapon can effectively harm them. So you can imagine that if wearing life fibers can make a normal human that strong, having them woven into your entire body, mixed with your very DNA, could change you a lot. So with all that in mind, I think there is only a single lineage that fits her half-alien heritage, one that can make her more durable, self-healing, and cover something else that I haven't mentioned yet. And that's going to be the Asimar, since variant human no longer exists as an option, and the healing hands feature from them is great for some early healing, which can heal herself or anyone else. But for the sake of her being on the front lines, it's just going to be herself. As for her background, like I said, Ryuko is a delinquent, and has apparently been causing fights in different schools for a long while now. so a background called the Delinquent with a bonus to Con and Charisma, the Athletics and Intimidation skills, and the Tough feat is what I'm going with. After all, she takes a huge beating from this little boxer guy in episode 1, and still manages to get out with only a few bumps and bruises, plus she's ready to go the next day like nothing happened. I plan on her having a pretty beefy health pool for her class, and speaking of her class, I think it's pretty cut and dry on what she is here. But this is only after meeting Senketsu. Before that, I think Ryuko is very simply a fighter. Sure, she has her scissor blade, but that's just a weapon. One meant to damage life fibers, yes, but still just a weapon, unlike Senketsu, who is fully alive and sentient. And given that Ryuko gets her ass handed to her in the first fight of the show, she's actually only going to have a single level in fighter, giving her great weapon fighting for her fighting style and weapon mastery. And I would consider her scissor blade to be a longsword since she can one or two-hand it. Now a single level is not a lot, and kind of explains why she gets beaten so badly by the boxer dude. But after falling into that basement and meeting Senketsu is where things get interesting, because their relationship is very much like that of a warlock and their patron. Ryuko feeds Senketsu blood, and in exchange, she is given access to his power. And while in the past the Hexblade was really the best option for a melee warlock, thanks to the changes to Pack His Blade in the new 2024 rules, that is no longer the case. Which is great, because I'm tired of ignoring level 6 feature for that one. But that begs the question, if she's not a Hexblade warlock, then what is she? Well, if we look at all the subclasses and not just the new ones from 2024, there is one warlock that gets to transform as one of their main features. And surprisingly, the Undead warlock with the Form of Dread feature is the best fit. Not only making her tougher with some temp HP, but also letting her fear people around her, which you can reflavor as the shock of seeing her outfit, and makes her immune to fear herself. She also gets to make her scissor blade even stronger with Pack of the Blade, Eldritch Smite, and Armor of Shadows for protection. But really, this is only what she gets at the start, since until Ryuko and Senketsu achieve their full life fiber synchronization, they are considerably weaker than they could be. But that is easily fixed with a few more levels. She gets to grab Grave Touch at level 6, letting her change the damage type of her spells or attacks to necrotic damage, and deal extra damage whenever she does, which might not seem super important, but I feel like that's a great reason for her blade to be able to cut through life fibers. But the most important thing for Ryuko here is actually going to be the level 10 feature, Necrotic Husk, giving her resistance and full-on immunity to necrotic damage, the ability to just not die once per day, and explode all of her blood out of her body when she does. This could also easily be reflavored as steam being vented from the outfit, which happens a lot, especially in her first fight with Satsuki where she uses it like a smoke bomb to get away. Senketsu also has thrusters on his back for increased speed, which I use as a reason to give Ryuko Relentless Hex so she can constantly teleport to her target. The spikes on her skirt can anchor her to the ground, and she can absorb the life fibers from Goku uniforms she destroys, which honestly the last part just feels like her leveling up, so I'm just going to be ignoring that part. And all of these abilities are just part of the basic full synchronization form. Ryuko and Senketsu actually have a couple different forms they discover throughout the first half of the show, and they put to great effect in the second half. So let's go through these one by one and see what abilities best fit for each one. And first up, according to the wiki, is Senketsu Senji, which grows spikes all over Ryuko's body and gives her retractable claws or blood blades. This one is pretty straightforward, with both of these abilities being covered by different spells. First off, the spikes are a great match for Armor of Agathis, so whenever someone hits her, they risk getting cut by the outfit. Pretty simple. And on top of that, the second level spell Shadow Blade is a great way to give her claws or a blood blade. Then there is Senketsu Shimpo, a very simple form letting Ryuko fly with a set of wings and jets on her legs. And I actually have two ways of giving her this form. First is obviously the fly spell, but since Ryuko has very limited spell slots being a warlock, I want to limit using those as much as I can. So instead, I grabbed the Heavenly Wings feature from her Aasimar lineage to give her a flying speed. It's not as fast as fly, but it's still a good option she has to fall back on if she's out of spell slots. Next up is the Senketsu Mubayoshi, which Ryuko uses against Nanon, another one of my favorite characters from the show. But this one's a little strange. It's more like she's canceling the sound waves of Nanon's attacks, so I thought the best way of doing this one would be with the spell Counterspell and Shatter to act as her sending the sound waves back at Nanon. I'll have to keep this in mind if I ever decide to build Nanon and the others. There's also Senji Shimpo, which is a combination of the first two forms, so nothing new here, just using Armor of Agathis and Fly at the same time. Now there is one more form, but we're going to save that for later. Technically, it's a bit weird. Instead, let's quickly cover a few things Ryuko grabs as she takes more and more life fibers and levels up. Starting with 2+2s to her Charisma, because she can use that for her Scissor Blade. At level 11, she gets another way to fly that also buffs her with the Mystic Arcanum spell, Tasha's Otherworldly Guise. And at level 12, she is going to grab the Slasher feat for a +1 to Dex. Now before, I mentioned how Ryuko is half life fiber, and that they can heal very quickly. So I felt the only fitting thing to do for that was to once again toss the idea of a spell list out the window and give her the Regenerate spell as her 7th level Mystic Arcanum, which will be a bit more important here in a minute. But before that, I wanted to cover something really big. And when I say that, I do mean really big, because for some reason, the scissor blade seemingly has the ability to change sizes, and not just going from like normal scissor size to the size of a sword, or even to the size of a greatsword with decapitation mode. But in some cases, they can get big enough to cut an entire school-sized mech in half. I kinda feel like Ryuko took a page out of Raiden's book here, but whatever. Putting the giant building-sized mech aside, I wanted decapitation mode. And just like with Miyabi in the ZZZ video, the best way to get that is with the 9th level spell, Blade of Disaster. This spell dishes out damage like nothing else, can crit on 18 or 20, and when it does, deals 3 times the damage instead of double. Which I think is the perfect tool for fighting the primordial life fiber and your mom in space. Look, I know I say this a lot, but this show is really weird, don't question it. But yes, Ryuko's mom is the big bad, a human life fiber hybrid like Ryuko herself, whose goal is to take over the world with the power of life fibers. And with all clothing on the earth being made of dormant life fibers, it really wasn't all that hard. Now it's rare enough for me to make a character that actually gets level 9 spells, but I'd say it's even rarer if I actually put them all the way to level 20. But as I've mentioned a few times, Ryuko has an insane healing factor. She's able to just not die once per day, heal herself with healing hands, and thanks to the durable feat that she picked up at level 16, she can heal herself even more. But to take this healing factor to the next level, to make it so strong that she could casually survive having her heart ripped out, she needs one more thing. The Boon of Recovery, which acts as another Uno Reverse card to death, by not only stopping her from dying, but healing her for half of her hit point maximum, and letting her heal up to 10d10 as a bonus action every long rest. Which is really the best way I have for getting her final form, which is just Senketsu and Junketsu mixed together, where the outfit becomes golden and it boosts up Ryuko's stats even more. But it's not a super unique transformation that unlocks a bunch of different abilities, it's just a power-up. And that's why I kinda wanted to focus on her massive healing factor, so let's see exactly how much damage she can actually take and therefore heal. With Healing Hands, Grave Touch, Durable, and Boon of Recovery, Ryuko has 2 get out of death free cards, a total of 11d10 plus 64 plus 19d8 of potential healing. And that's not even considering the regeneration spell we took, which is a bit slower but still adds up. And with around 200 hit points thanks to tough and a decent con score, she can not only heal half of that thanks to Boon of Recovery, but with all those healing things, not including regeneration, she has around 179 hit points worth of healing. Ryuko might not have the most HP or the highest AC, but that hardly matters, because just like with life fibers, if you can't kill her in one blow and stop her from healing, she's just gonna get right back up, swap the decapitation mode, and send your head rolling.
We made it! We still have 15 minutes before first period starts.
Awesome. Piece of cake.
Piece of cake.
Mako, you rock so hard. Couldn't have done it without ya.
Not at all. I was just backing you up.
Aw, shucks.
Okay, that took a lot longer than I intended, so let's speed through this part, okay? Ready? Good. These character sheets are up on my Patreon. You can get them for just $1, along with voting on all the polls for future teams. But there's also going to be a special announcement for something new on Patreon that I will put at the end of the video, so stick around. Of course, it would be awesome if you could subscribe if you like the stuff I make, and maybe like the video to help appease the almighty YouTube algorithm. And lastly, remember that we have a massive 35% discount code with Homie and the Dude. Right now, their Wandering Tavern is their biggest product with a bunch of cool stuff, NPCs, maps, magic items, airships, so go check that out using the code GMG for 35% off. Now, back to the video. Satsuki Kiryuin spends the first half of the show as an antagonist to Ryuko, refusing to let go of any information, even to just deny that she killed Ryuko's dad, which she didn't. But she does end up sicking the entire school on Ryuko after their first major fight. But despite this, she's not actually evil. Sure, she's, well, extreme in her beliefs, but her overall goal is to put a stop to her mother's plan for world domination. Step 1 of that was getting Honoji Academy ready for war, and step 2, well, we'll get to that in a minute. Now you might think that with her and Ryuko being sisters that Satsuki would also be an Aasimar, but unlike her sister, Satsuki actually failed when it came to merging with life fibers, so she is a full human. So that, along with her very militaristic viewpoint on the school, means I'm going to make her a human with the alert feat, savage attack from a soldier, And also from Soldier is a +2 bump to her charisma and a +1 to her strength, because she'll be needing both of those for what I have planned. And funnily enough, I think Satsuki starts off just like Ryuko, as a simple fighter. But even before getting Junketsu, she is noticeably stronger, overpowering Ryuko in her non-synchronized form with just her sword. But real quick, before we get to that, let's take a look at her stats. And Satsuki is one of those characters that I hate having to put innate anywhere in her build, but that's just how standard array works. So for this, I'm dumping her wisdom, since she really just doesn't need it. Outside of that one hiccup though, her main stats are going to be strength and charisma, both to use her sword properly and to command her soldiers. Now while Ryuko only had a single level in fighter before jumping over to warlock, I thought it would be fitting for Satsuki to go a full 3 levels, getting the same fighting style as her sister, but this time actually getting a full subclass. Going with the Samurai Fighter for Fighting Spirit, giving her advantage on all of her attacks as a bonus action on top of giving her an extra 5 temporary hit points. But just like with Ryuko getting Senketsu and leveling up, Satsuki gets her own Kamui in Junketsu, or Purity. But unlike her sister who bonds with Senketsu and talks to him, Satsuki and Junketsu can't do that. In fact, if anyone else had put on that outfit, they would have died, or at least completely lost control. But through Satsuki's determination and aspiration to save the planet from her mother, she doesn't just not die when wearing Junketsu, she takes control. And this right here is why I'm not making her a warlock. While Ryuko and Senketsu have a mutual friendship with their transformation being synchronization, Satsuki and Junketsu are different. Instead of synchronizing, Satsuki overrides Junketsu's will if he even has one like Senketsu does. And she does this with pure willpower and conviction to her ideals, which to me is the perfect reason to make her a paladin. A class that gets their strength and power not directly from a god, but from their devotion to upkeeping their oath. And given how strongly Satsuki desires to overthrow her mother, not only for the sake of the world, but also as revenge for killing her little sister, this is the perfect setup for Satsuki to not only be a paladin, but an Oath of Vengeance paladin. And honestly, I think putting on Junketsu was a massive leap in level for Satsuki. She was already highly skilled with her sword, but after wearing Junketsu, she goes from strong to terrifying. She gets faster, hits harder, and is relentless, matching and surpassing Ryuko in their first major fight with relative ease. And as a paladin, she gets features like Smite, still not a fan of the new Smite rules, not using them. Vow of Enmity, so she can hyper-focus on killing her mother, and Relentless Avenger. Not only letting her cut any escape attempts short by bashing kneecaps, but then she can immediately move up to half her speed without being attacked. Plus there's still a bunch more from Paladin. But the thing with trying to figure out Satsuki's exact level is that while yes, she does do some spell-like things, a lot of her strength is just raw power and swordplay with Junketsu. So instead of digging through every single fight she takes part in, I went with the vibes route, just looking at what suited her best given what we see. So with that in mind, I think in total for Paladin, Satsuki is level 16, meaning she can take a couple feats, like Speedy for a bonus to her speed and con, Great Weapon Master so she can hit harder with her Bakuzan, and lastly a +2 to her con and a +2 to her strength. She also gets a bunch of cool Paladin features like Aura of Protection and Abjure Foe, which is really perfect for her intimidating presence whenever she's around. She also gets the last feature for her subclass, Soul of Vengeance, letting Satsuki get a free attack in whenever the target of her Vow of Enmity makes an attack against her, whether they hit or miss. Now this next part has the potential to be pretty spoiler heavy, so I'm going to do my best to not go too into detail on anything. If you remember what I said before about life fibers being able to heal, you should also remember that the stronger, more pure life fibers are able to reconnect before a blade fully passes through them. Meaning no matter how sharp her Bakuzan is, no matter how hard she swings it, Satsuki would never actually be able to kill her mother with that weapon. She's going to need another one. And thankfully for Satsuki, her mother Ragyo actually helps with that, because during a fight between the two, Satsuki is defeated and her blade is shattered in two. Of course she has a backup plan in the form of goddamn fake toenails made of the same metal as her Bakuzan, and is eventually reunited with the two halves of her weapon, now made into a pair. And because this change happens pretty close to the end of the anime, I thought it would be most fitting to wait until now, for her last level to give Satsuki the dual wielder feat. Because despite just getting this new set of weapons, she's oddly skilled with it right off the bat. And sure, the feat isn't amazing, but if it helps save humanity from the life fibers, she'll do it. Hell, Satsuki will do pretty much anything to see her goals through to the end.
Still having a hard time believing Satsuki Kiryuin planned this!
I know, right? But at this point, I don't care who brings Ragyo down!
Damn it, what did we even come here for?
You won't escape me, Ragyo Kiryuin!
Okay, so I do have to admit, I am rewatching the anime as I write this script. It's been like at least 7 to 9 years since I watched the show, so I probably missed a few things here and there. And yeah, I probably should have rewatched it sooner, but I've been busy with a lot of stuff. Thankfully though, we have an editor now, so the videos are still coming out mostly on time. Pretty sure some stuff would have been pretty late without that. But moving on, there is technically one more character I have here, but I'm not going to go fully into detail like normal because this character is very simple. Mako. I made her kind of as a joke, but also because I put her on a poll and over 700 of you voted on it. Pretty sure that is the second highest number of votes we've had on any poll, and 70% of you guys voted for Mako. So let's get this part out of the way real quick. She's a human with the lucky feet, the student background, and some really straightforward stats. The thing with building Mako is she is a supporting character. She has very few fights, and one of them is with Ryuko. She spends most of her time watching Ryuko from the sidelines, helping in some ways, or interjecting herself into conversations, or even fights to deliver a strange rant that somehow just kind of works out for her. But at the same time, she does actually get a Goku uniform at some point, and uses it to great effect, but really only gets to fight with it once or twice. Firstly because Ryuko shreds it the first time she sees it, and secondly because she only gets it remade for like an episode or two at the end. But what I'm saying is that Mako can fight in certain circumstances, but mostly supports and helps on the sidelines in non-fighty ways. And there is only a single class that can truly live up to and enable Mako's level of pure chaos. And of course, that is going to be the Bard. Which sure has plenty of good features she can use, like bardic inspiration to pump Ryuko up, or cutting words to interrupt someone yelling at Ryuko with her own rant. And of course, the Bard comes with some spells, and I thought some funny ones were in order. Charm Person and Sleep are not only great spells for early levels, you know, as long as she's not casting sleep on herself, but they also fit really well with her personality. But something I really want to get is her Goku uniform for when push comes to shove and Mako has to throw hands. And some spells can be used for that, like Hold Person for her chains, Spiritual Weapon and Fireball are great for her bat and some other weapons that just explode when she throws them. But for the actual uniform itself, I think the 5th level spell, Tencher's Transformation, is the only way to really get that. This spell gives Mako extra attack, advantage on set attacks that deal an extra 2d12 force damage on every hit, and gives her a bunch of temp HP. And sure, you could say technically wrenches and stuff shouldn't work on this, but that's also why I gave her the Tavern Brawler feat. Oh, and also Bigby's hand is a really good fit, great for punching things really hard. Mako is, well, probably one of the strangest characters I've seen in anime, but I love her. She is a pure chaos gremlin who does her best to help her friends and family, and you know what? She totally earned that date with Ryuko at the end. Go get her.
Ryuko loves her uniform more than anything on the planet! She's always talking and whispering to it. It's creepy, but it's true! In fact, my whole family's creeped out by it! But it's cool, because that's what a person does when they only have one set of clothes.
You know, I feel weird writing this outro. I don't think I've made a character like Mako before, and I don't know, something just feels off, like I'm missing something or a character, something important, but you know what? I'm sure if I did, you guys will tell me in the comments. But before we go, I do have that announcement to make about Patreon that I told you about before. As some of you may have seen, I have a huge list of anime and games I intend to go through eventually. I put these teams on polls and let you guys on Patreon pick what comes out next. And to help whittle down this list a little bit, we're going to be adding a new tier. All the other ones are going to be staying the same, and I'm going to try to add something to the $10 tier as well, but this new tier is going to be $20, and it will act like a commission. It's going to be a one-time purchase that is available once a month, so once someone gets it, it's not available until the next month starts. You can pick anything from the list that isn't One Piece, and I will make that into one of the upcoming videos. I would recommend checking the recent polls to make sure you aren't commissioning something that's already won, but otherwise you should be good. And there might be some more stuff like this in the future, but for now this will just help us work through the list and get a bit more stuff done. As per usual, I want to thank my testers for looking over the builds and our new editor Goblin for editing the video. And of course I want to thank our patrons who continue to support the channel. We are getting so close to 200 patrons and that would be awesome. So if you can share the channel around, we really want to overtake the old channel by the end of the year, or at least get close to it. But that is going to do it for today. I will see you all next time, and as always, have a wonderful day.